My name is Bryce separately. I'm 29 years old and I'm born and raised in Dubuque, Iowa. I got into cars growing up in a time when the media was all about cars. It seemed like there were new movies coming out here and there, Fast and Furious, different Need for Speed games coming out, and it just kind of fell on me. Growing up at the time, my dad had a really cool car. He was never really that into cars, but he just kind of fell upon an old Merkur XRT4i, and ever since then I just remembered that being like the epitome for having cool cars. Is just a casual thing. The biggest thing that made me want to build cars and really get into fixing cars is learning how things work, why things are done a certain way. I like taking things apart slowly just to learn, oh, this piece is there because it serves this purpose, and just the general liking to know why things are where and what they do. The biggest difficulties are self-doubt, especially when taking on a project like completely tearing apart a car and putting it back together. There's a lot of, I don't think I'm gonna be able to do this. Is this a financially good idea? And just the general knowledge of everything. But just like every other topic, it's a learning curve. You'll start to get into things, you'll start tearing apart one piece and start to realize, oh shit, that wasn't too difficult. It's just two bolts that I have to take off here and there, and the whole thing comes apart. Currently, I'm working on a 1996 Volkswagen Golf Harlequin edition. So this was one of 264. There were 4 different models where they all had different variations of the color palette. So these colors are actually factory this way. It came with a really small engine, but I've got one that's a little bit bigger back behind me, a inline 6-cylinder. So should be a lot of fun, and just like everything else, it's been an eye-opening learning curve, that's for sure. This car specifically, I had been looking for a Harlequin since I was about 16, 17. I was working at Dairy Queen at the time, periodically working in the window, and just one night I happened to be working and a guy drove through with a Volkswagen Harlequin, and I was just stunned. Obviously, you see all the different panels and you're thinking, oh, this guy swapped some panels around, or he's painting it, or something like that. And he's like, no, this was standard this way. This is Volkswagen's vision. Why they did it was for specific reasons, and ever since then I was like, I really want one of these. So I had been looking for the longest time. About 5 years ago I found one in Minnesota. Was starting to plan on making an advance to buying it. On my way there, actually, they had called me and told me it was sold. And then about a year later, a buddy of mine here in town found one and bought it. And of course, I was jealous every single time I saw it. So he had it for a while, and he actually was involved in an accident a few months ago. So with the frame damage, he wanted nothing to do with it. So I told him, well, I'll take it off your hands, and I promise I'll get it back on the road. And it was a pretty emotional experience for him, actually, because he was pretty sad about losing it. So yeah, it's kind of a heart project for me. The biggest thing was taking apart the front end and unbending everything so I could get to the engine, get to all the accessories, because it was just a mangled mess of metal. So it was just working on things a little bit at a time, hitting a bump in the road almost the entire way through. Just the other day I was trying to clean up the sound deadening inside and found about 4 more rust holes in the floor. So it's just one step forward and about a half a step back. My main thing is I really want to just get it back on the road. I want to get it back on the road so I can drive it. Other people can see it. I've heard kids laughing and calling these cars the clown cars, and it's just such a happy moment for a kid to see something cool driving down the road that they don't normally see. It puts a smile on their face, it puts a smile on adults' faces, and I really like explaining the car to people, because most people see it and again, they just think it's a mash of panels and missing out. But no, it's the experience of being able to save a car, putting it back on the road, creating that memory for people, and they may have had a memory of this car a long time ago that they forgot, and unfortunately, with older cars and cars that would otherwise go to the junkyard, the memory of the car just goes away and the cars die out. You start seeing the new stuff out on the road and you start kind of forgetting about the old things until you see one day and you're like, oh man, I remember I had a couple friends that had those cars and it was a blast. And it's just that want of like, man, I wish I'd had one of those. So I've been working on this car for about 3 months now. When I got it, it was kind of a question of where do I start? So there were some lulls of, do I want to just start tearing apart the front, get the engine out, work on tearing apart the interior. So in about 3 months time, I got the engine out, pretty much all the accessories from the front. Interior is almost all stripped. It's in the process now of getting frame work done. So hopefully most of the car is left after that's done, but I've got another car for parts that we'll probably end up cutting up and swapping onto this car. So I would love to have the car done by next summer. I'm not extremely confident with that just because I know my work, the way I work, especially with building this thing, is I'm slow. I'll take one thing apart, figure out how it works, try to improve upon it. There's been a lot of things that I'll take apart and that's, I'll see something broken on it, or like the speakers I'll take apart and realize, why would they put the speakers there? So it'll be a process of doing everything by hand slowly. So I would guess it's probably going to be about a 2-year process, just getting it back on the road and driving. And then once that 2 years is up, I'm going to have a little more fun and start modifying it and really making it the way I'd want.